Welcome to Convicted Patriot Broadcast, your source to real information with no punches held and no apologies issued. See, it's all connected, right and left. It's an illusion. See, there's so much, this rabbit hole goes so deep that it's going to take you forever to catch up. And this is, quite frankly, a war for our very souls. I want us all to pray for our country in the direction we are headed. God bless you all, and God bless America. And God bless you all. Welcome to Convicted Patriot, your source for common sense in a world full of insanity. Listen, man, it's been a really rough weekend, that followed. Me and my wife, over the last, I'd say 90 days, have put a new roof on our house. We have redone both of our bathrooms, damn near top to bottom. I bought a new work truck. That was only $4,000, but let's, keep adding on here. Somebody sideswiped my Cadillac. That cost me an ass of money. And it just, it kind of, when it rains, it pours. And so, of course, in the middle of this, being that I'm married and my wife has to make woman decisions, no offense, women out there, no offense to my beautiful wife. But of course, in the middle of all this, she wants to repaint the whole house. So, starting over the last weekend, that's exactly what we did. We went and got all of her colors. And man, if a woman comes to you with 10 different colors and says, you pick which one you like, these are my choice. No, she's already picked. It doesn't matter what you choose. She's still going to do what she wants. She was just curious if you were on the same page. Anyway, that being said, Monday I get to work, and mind you, I started typing this Iran episode up days ago. I think maybe like 5 days ago. I've been trying to get around to this. And of course, every day that I don't broadcast, more shit happens. And it's just, I have to keep going into it and adding all these things that happen. And it's a cluster, man. But that being said, Monday I get off work, and my wife informs me that, oh yeah, my central air started messing up over the weekend. So it's starting to get hot. So I just went and bought some window units for the time being. One of them exploded on me on day 2 and leaked a bunch of whatever the hell, maybe Freon, I don't know, into my bedroom for about 45 minutes. And needless to say, we didn't really think much of that. So much going on. As I just told you, all the projects that we have, we're finishing things up. We're getting holes patched, repainting over that. It's just, when you're doing it, you might as well do it all, right? So then I wake up Tuesday and feeling like death yesterday. And I really wanted to do this podcast yesterday because I didn't go to work because I felt like death. My wife ended up coming home early from work, and then she ended up coming home again early today. It's just like, oh, man. Anyway, I suffered through it. I went to work. I thugged it out. It is what it is. And now here we are. It's like something has been trying to get me from playing this episode. But anyway, can't stop, won't stop. I'm your host, Christian Russ. And I hope that you guys can hang with me tonight, because I do plan on going pretty deep in the weeds while trying to explain to you more of what I meant on my last episode, which was the fact that we're getting boxed out of the Middle East. Anyway, as of today, which is the 11th of March, 2026, we're on day 11 of this conflict with Iran, Israel's war with Iran. We have, over 1,500 people so far that have been killed by U.S.-Israeli attacks. The IRGC has announced it's over 23. This was 2 days ago. I didn't even update that. So 2 days ago, it was 23rd wave of strikes. Who knows by it is by now. Anyway, Israel is claiming to have hit over 500 targets successfully. And Trump has said that the only way to end this is to complete surrender from Iran. But I hope that you know that's not going to happen. You see, if you start digging into this a little bit more, you start realizing how much, man, we get lied to so damn much. And I was really backing Donald Trump this go around. America first, my ass. Here we are. And that just goes to show you, man, you can't trust politicians. Which is why I've always said what I've said. I lean right, but I'm not a Republican. I don't trust any of them. Anyway, apparently Iran said that, they were coming to the table already, and they were telling them that we are not going to make any more nukes. It's okay. They didn't have any to begin with. They're not going to enrich uranium to the level of making nuclear weapons. Excuse me. Let me rephrase it like that. And they said if they had come to an agreement on that, they could have even started talking ballistic. But on some really wild scumbag shit, last June, We did it to them. We tricked them with the negotiation, said, "We're gonna work it out, come talk to us," and then Israel blew that location up, and this is how, the Khamenei was killed this time. This is how the leader of the Ayatollah was killed. We tricked him, said we were gonna negotiate, and blew his ass up as soon as he came out. So, I mean, like, I thought we were the United States. I thought we had dignity. I thought we had integrity. You look at things like this bombing of this girls' school. What was that? Over 180 children that were murdered, and they forget to tell you when they did kill the 12 commanders in the Ayatollah up under Khamenei that they also killed hella civilians to kill them. For instance, one was in an apartment building with 60 other civilians, and yeah, they killed him along with everybody else in the apartment building. Um, wow. We said regime change is what we were going for Israel, and that was done in 24 hours. And we're still there. Ukraine is somehow sending help against, I guess, Shahed drones in the Middle East, and the UK finally has agreed to help in his normal time frame after it's clear that obviously, this shit's not going to stop. But Trump told him, go sit back down in your corner and collar your illegal groomers or whatever you guys do. Which fuck the British, honestly. What? Anyway, and they coddle jihadists too. So whatever. This is going to affect them so badly. I hope the whole world knows this is going to affect the entire world. But let me try to explain this a little bit better. So, according to several officials in Washington, the Iranian Navy, air defenses, and military overall have been decimated. On that same note, Israel's soon to run out of defense missiles and simply doesn't possess the material to manufacture more. It's like the Patriot missiles, man. It's a very complex weapon. It takes high-tech laser components, rare earth minerals, and at the most, I think the reports say the United States makes around 600 a year. And if pushed, like to involve other countries like Japan, they could possibly push up to 2K a year. But we're using 300-400 a day with the Iron Dome shooting down all these other missiles. So hundreds are being used at a time, and the reserves are running low. Estimates have it that they maybe will hold out another 4 to 6 days. Iran has plenty of ballistic missiles and drones, which aren't as complicated to make, or, they've stockpiled them. They've been known some shit was going to happen. We've been pushing them around for a year now, really longer than that. But, Trump has been pushing for a year. So, obviously, seeing how tied in this administration is with Israel, which, the last one was too. It's not like the Democrats are any better, but this one is a little extreme. But, people like Chuck Schumer would do it. Hakeem Jeffries, none of the Democrats are speaking out against it because they want it just as much. It's a uniparty. It's really a uniparty. If you guys are still thinking that it's left versus right, liberal versus conservative, red versus blue, black versus white, fucking gay versus straight, whatever the divide is, you realize that they're laughing at that because the whole time they're just robbing us blind and ruling us like we're just peasants. And they keep you divided with stupid little conflicts, and they dump millions of dollars into these conflicts through like NGOs. They hire protesters, they hire agitators. They make it's an inorganic thing that becomes organic after you push and push and push. Anyway, since the missiles are so easily hidden underground and in tunnels, it's almost impossible for the U.S. Israeli forces to find the damn things. It's like a bombing game of whack-a-mole. Soon Iran will be able to push right through if they can just make it a few more days, which Trump advisors for sure didn't run by him before this started as a scenario at all. Trump really believed the lie that he was sold, that if you decapitate the Ayatollah, that Iran would collapse. All of those citizens that were protesting would rise up, and the U.S./Israel could install a new puppet leader under their thumb. What was said may take a few days is now forecasted to possibly last until September. So let me take you on this mental journey real quick and peel back some of these layers. Please remember, always, it's so important to just tell the truth. It needs to be ingrained on our hearts because those that came before us didn't live by that principle, and they were so easily manipulated into believing all of the previous lies that were pushed us into war over and over. Do you even know why we went into the Middle East in the early 2000s? Of course, 9/11, but that. Anyway, before we hit that rabbit hole, we must push through the truth. Got to push through all the bullshit to the truth so that our children don't get fed the same cycle of history that we did. See, the victors are the ones that are left standing to tell the story, thus control the narrative and the moral superiority. But let's talk about cycles and history and how that relates to Iran. Remember, and this is important, once the military industrial complex takes over, winning is not the objective of any war. Prolonging it is. Anyway, this might be a little long tonight. I got some clips to play you to back up everything I'm telling you, and bear with me. This is a one-man show. I do not feel that great. That's one of the main reasons I didn't get up here yesterday is because I looked like I felt, and I didn't want you to know that I was human and that regular illness falls upon me as it does you. You goyim. Anyway, here we go. This is the history lesson. If you really want to know what's going on, this is where the explanation starts, and this is the truth. The Greater Israel Project is something that Netanyahu calls a historic and spiritual mission. Zionist bankers founded Israel in 1948, and the land of Palestine, where it now sits, was given to the Rothschild family via the Balfour Declaration of 1917. It's no coincidence that a prominent Jewish banking family received the land that Israel soon sat founded on just a few decades later. The radical Zionist, Theodore Herzl, is the father of political Zionism and the push for the Greater Israel philosophy. This is the guy that came up with this whole, wait a minute, this is divine. Whether you read it in Genesis, Deuteronomy, or Samuel, the idea is that all of the promised land should be returned to the Israeli people by any means, and yes, that includes parts of modern-day Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. To hell with whom or whatever happens to happens to be there. It belongs to the Jews. And I know this sounds almost unbelievable, but all you have to do to see how much people really stand behind this is go watch Tucker Carlson's interview with Mike Huckabee, the United States ambassador to Israel, which really should be like the foreign ambassador to the United States, because the American ambassador is more so on Team Israel. And it's clear from that interview that he indeed has what's best for Israel in his sights versus the interest of the United States, which is absolutely not what he was hired to do. Interestingly enough, excuse me. Interestingly enough, if you take a look at the Israeli Defense Force badge, you can actually see a map of the Greater Israel Project. And the strangest thing ever is that if you also pull up a map of ancient Babylon, the similarities are unmistakable. Another odd badge that is on the IDF uniforms is the badge that represents the rebuilding of the Temple of Jerusalem for the third time. Now, most of you, I'm sure, are lost in the significance of this, but it is actually a huge deal, especially if you tie the biblical aspect into it, which, I mean, you almost have to at this point because of all the painful obviousness of it all. Let me help you here. You see, the first temple was built in 957 BC by King Solomon. Before him, his father, King David, conquered Jerusalem and selected Mount Moriah as the temple site. Okay, so Solomon built this thing, and it held the Ark of the Covenant in it, and not to mention how big it was to the Jewish faith symbolically. See, Solomon's temple was very renowned. It was huge. And in 586 BC, the Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar II, he conquered Jerusalem and destroyed the temple that Solomon completed, thus crushing the spirit of the people, and soon after that taking them into captivity into Babylon. I've told you about this before, but when they went into captivity into Babylon, this is where the Kabbalah was born into the Jewish faith. It seeped into it and poisoned it. So many, even to this day, that the practice of black magic with their Judaism, once out of that's what they do. Now, of course, it's not all Jews. Just like all Christians don't play with rattlesnakes, just like all Muslims don't put C4 on their 8-year-old, just like all Catholics don't touch little boys. It's not every denomination. It's not, you can't go with collective punishment because, well, first of all, me as a Christian, it's against my belief to collectively punish anyone. But I mean, this is America. Have we not learned that collective punishment is, haven't we fought against that time and time again? So we're not going to do it now. But once out of this captivity, the Jews in Babylon, that is, they took that shit back home with them, the Cabal. So in 538 BC, the Persian king Cyrus, he allowed the Jews to go back to Jerusalem, and then from 520 to man, there's a lot of stuff to remember. From like 520 to 515 BC, they rebuilt the second temple. This one was made, it was made longer than the first. It made it way longer than the first by a long shot. Towards its ending, it was completely redone with extravagance by King Herod, whom we all know wasn't the most peaceful man. Unfortunately, in 70 AD, now listen, this is kind of one of the badass parts that just makes you be like, man, this is real. Unfortunately, in 70 AD, which is approximately 35 years after Jesus Christ said that not one stone would be unturned, that the temple would be destroyed and every stone turned. Well, the temple was destroyed. It was destroyed by King Titus of Rome. And at the time of his destruction, he was just a general, but he became a king, probably because of this. And Jesus made it very clear that the temple was symbolic of the old covenant and no longer needed to reach God or to be forgiven during repentance. Jesus said that he was the new temple, and through him, you could get to the Father. So that being said, any attempt to rebuild it in any way would be almost blasphemous. I mean, unless you truly believe in your heart that building that third temple would force prophecy to be fulfilled and cause your Messiah to come back, and you and your people can rule over the earth with Goyim as your personal 2,800 slaves each. Remember what I said about the greater Israel and what these people believe? Well, this goes right along with it. So in 363 AD, Julian the Apostate, which he was called that because he was ruling right behind Constantine of Rome, which is pretty much single credit. He gets handed single credit for bringing Christianity to the West. But Julian mocked Jesus, his predecessor, and he tried to rebuild the temple, despite Jesus' claim that it was no longer needed and that covenant was dead. And according to accounts from Christians and pagans that were there and recorded statements, balls of fire supposedly started flying at the foundation of it and pushing workers away. This was always said via tongue-in-cheek, pretty much, until archaeologists later found physical proof that in 363 there was absolutely earthquakes and other shifts in the geography in that specific location. Might I add to the irony of how Julian the Apostate was soon after murdered while he was invading Persia, which is modern-day Iran. Just saying. So, what am I getting at here? Why did I just tell you all of that? Well, see, the radical Zionist of today, and I can't stress enough that there are radicals in all religions. This isn't a collective judgment. We don't make and apply it to all people. People aren't monoliths, okay? But these radical Zionists indeed believe that enforcing the prophecy, and to us Americans, it can seem ridiculous and almost unbelievable, but that was done intentionally to the United States. See, we have been desensitized to religion and God in general to where we as a country, for the most part, have separated from it. And it's a wild thing to have the connection severed to your creator by people who want to control you and abuse you and use you for their system like a battery until you're all out of energy, can't provide anymore, until they dump you and replace you with your own kids, whom they have also, through you yourself and the school system, stripped away from God. The rest of the world takes religion very seriously and wholeheartedly. So what may seem like a silly fairy tale to us Americans is quite literally the entire life, from prayer to conversation to morals and the food they eat. It is beyond a faith to them. It is a lifestyle. And because we have been so far removed from it, we don't understand why and how we have lost our way. And this is also a huge disadvantage to our naive lawmakers, for they fail to see the implications and weight that the supernatural have to do with any of this. See, like I said, sprinkle this on top of the Greater Israel Project and you have where we are today. And, I thought about not doing this, but I decided I would because I know most of you believe me. But let me just show you a few clips of these radical Zionists and how they feel about these things. I brought receipts.
It's all moved by Hashem to this location, to that location. We don't know. Maybe one of the missiles will hit the mosque and clear the place for the third Bet HaMikdash. That could also be a miracle. If it was up to me, The last time when they shot hundreds of missiles, I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down. You know, then all the Arabs will go against Iran. It will be the end of the problems. You make them fight with each other, this bunch of lunatics. Never too late. You deal with a bunch of cowards. The Israeli leaders, they just want to pass the week.
And today, Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle. 1948 was a miracle. 1967 was a miracle. 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle. And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
And the president of Argentina?
Del segundo templo a manos de los romanos. The story took place after the destruction of the second temple by the Romans. Se encontraba Rabbi Akiva y sus colegas observando el monte del templo en ruinas y vieron a un zorro salir del lugar más santo de lo que era el templo. Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues were observing the Temple Mount in ruins, and they saw a fox leave the holiest of holies in the temple. No podría haber una escena más desalentadora que aquella. There could have been no more disheartening scene than that. Frente a esta terrible escena, los rabinos lloraron en señal de duelo, pero Rabbi Akiva comenzó a reír. In the face of this terrible scene, the rabbis cried in mourning, but Rabbi Akiva started to laugh. Sus colegas le preguntaron cómo podía reír frente a semejante tragedia, a lo que Rabbi Akiva respondió. His colleagues asked how he could possibly laugh in the face of such a tragedy, to which Rabbi Akiva answered. Hay una profecía acerca de la destrucción que relata que un zorro irrumpiría en el lugar más santo. There's a prophecy about the destruction that says that a fox will break into the holiest of holies. También hay otra profecía que relata que este mismo lugar será reconstruido. There is another prophecy that says that the same place will be rebuilt. Ahora que veo con mi...
And you have our favorite Christian televangelist guy. We have Greg Glock. And he's taking all the Christians with him down this one.
I'm sick of all these Christians saying we ought to have peace with Islam. Islam is a satanic death cult, and they would cut your head off before I said amen in this sermon if they had a chance to. What they ought to do is evacuate up there on the hill and get a great big missile and blow that wicked dome of the rock plumb off of the spot where it's standing right now so we can get that third temple rebuilt and usher in the coming of Jesus.
And there you have it. I mean, I could keep putting them out there over and over and over and over. They are by far not the only ones that have been speaking on the third temple being rebuilt. And then even on the Zionist tip, they feel like they can force Armageddon. And apparently, if you're to believe everything on the internet, which we have to take with a grain of salt, there's a lot of servicemen complaining that they are being fed that same storyline, that this is God's battle and they're going to bring Armageddon and this is just all prophecy. But of course, this is simply not the entire story, as this is a theological perception. You also have the reality of the geopolitical struggle that makes this whole thing much more simple and ugly. See, geopolitically, the aspect is easy enough to grasp. Israel wants to have the big stick and call the shots in their region. Said region, obviously, being the Middle East. The correct word to use here is hegemony. Israel wants complete dominance that is unchallenged. That being said, who wouldn't? I mean, they are completely hated by the majority of their neighbors, by the majority of the world, honestly, whether that being from them thinking they are superior or just religious reasons or any type of the other things that they have done that's landed them kicked out of over 109 different countries throughout history. So, like any good leader or leaders, They want to protect and provide for their people, and being King Kong in the jungle has its very obvious advantages, okay? Just look at the United States. Without the hegemony we possess in the Western Hemisphere, I highly doubt this country would be anywhere as close, as prosperous as it once was anyway. By the skin of its teeth, it still is. When you look at Iran, and the fact that they have and still do fund the majority of the Islamic terrorism that pours out of the Middle East and spreads across all civilizations, you can see why crushing them would help, more than just the countries involved. And some, but not all of those groups include Hamas, Hezbollah, and whatever. The supreme leader was the voice of authority in Iran, and he had all of the religious zealots, or in some cases just brainwashed cult members, hanging off of his every word. But the key word there is was, because in a very short fashion, he, along with the 12 of his highest ranked commanders, got their nose wiped. For those of you who are unfamiliar with today's Ebonics, they were terminated. That's another huge red flag that no one seems to be calling out nearly enough, considering huge polling numbers all showed that before this conflict, it was like 1 in 5 Americans that were behind this thing when it kicked off. And that's not hard to believe at all, because a huge number of Americans voted for Trump and believed in him when he said it wasn't going to be business as usual in D.C. anymore. That he was going to drain the swamp and put a permanent stop to verbatim stupid wars. He literally has tweets from before he ever got into politics calling out forever wars in the Middle East, critiquing Bush, and at that time Obama, who was in the middle of allowing Hillary to pull off Benghazi. Another conflict for another hidden agenda covered up to the American people with another web of lies that was undoubtedly threaded together with repetition until it became fact. And we walked into it and got tangled without noticing, because we are checking social media and with AirPods on and smart glasses and iPads, and they keep us entertained while the elite spider sucks us dry of our lives until we either wither away and our children repeat our mistakes or die. This time, that giant red flag that's blinking, yet being ignored, is the part where we, entered the war because Israel forced us to. Our greatest ally, and this is coming from Marco Rubio, said that if we didn't make a move, that they were going to, regardless, and that was going to inadvertently bring us along for the ride anyway. Oh, and as a side note, if they don't feel like they're capable of completing their objectives set forth conventionally, then they were quite possibly going to go nuclear. Well, that would ensure, I guess, what they were going for, but it would also ensure a lot of way worse things. That was said to have left us with two choices. The first one being that we go in with them and basically guarantee it's done right, take less of a risk of like a sophisticated retaliation due to almost certain disrupted organization and thus less life lost. Or the second was to let Israel go by themselves, and once Iran struck, we would join in. And obviously we took option one, and yet we are told it was over nukes, even though we all remember last June and Trump's ego posting about how they were precise, how precise the military was, and how we set their nuclear program back years due to obliteration. Then we were told we had to go in because they were killing their citizens for protesting, but I guess no one really told you that those protests weren't organic at all. Just like the ones funded all over the United States via NGOs, they were Kurds and other assets that Israel planted, just like they did in Syria before. Which is why when Starlink got cut and they had no way to speak to all their handlers or get paid, they all just left. Just as they showed up magically at the same time, they left at the same time. And to even further drive that home was the attendance of the funeral of Khamenei. I mean, obviously, it was a huge deal to his people. He was a big deal. He wasn't really this hated fucking man that we were all told he was. The U.S. doesn't care about that, though. We are currently back in Israel, and they have admitted to killing over 90,000 civilians. So, I mean, we got to go to Iran to stop them from killing civilians, but we back Israel, and they just admitted to killing almost 100,000 in Gaza. And if we went to war with every country that killed its people, we'd be all over the damn place. Hell, just in Canada, their government has the MAIDS program. My point is, the administration of self-proclaimed transparency has once again shot itself in the other kneecap. The former kneecap was lost to the Democrat hoax known as, that thing that turned out to be over 3.5 million files so far. It absolutely doesn't help that Trump's own administration came out and told us that Iran never posed an imminent threat to us, the United States, at all. And the gut punch is that Joint Chief of Staff, Dan Raisin Kane, he tried to urge Trump to reconsider this before, because if anything didn't go as planned, we only had enough munitions for 3 to 4 weeks on the ground. So now that we have troops on the ready in the Middle East, about 50,000 strong, a few thousand in places like Saudi and Kuwait, the plan, I suppose, is to airbomb them and hope that they surrender and we don't have to flush them out and chance losing more American lives. I personally find it hard to believe that Iran has been able to make any nukes since last June, being that they've been under a literal microscope by intelligence of every country with the tech to monitor them, zoom in on them. I'm pretty sure the technology we have now would scare the shit out of you. Now, that being said, our greatest ally was the reason we say that we had to go in, and we had to go in right now and get this conflict on the road. My question is, why didn't we just say no? I mean, Americans are getting absolutely nothing out of this. In fact, it's actually already started hurting our pockets at the gas pump. We haven't even seen anything yet, though, but I'll get to those specifics real shortly. We're losing American souls. And for what? The country is once again being handed something else to divide us into groups. Fight about right after we receive the biggest file dump and possible exposure of some of the sickest motherfuckers that we've ever had walk this earth. Got to keep our eyes on the ball, man. But first, we need to get some answers into why this war had to happen, and it had to happen right now. We could have simply said no. We could have, and here's how. The entire point, of Trump's tariffs were to leverage all those other countries to make a fair trade deal. And if they couldn't find the magic number, then the tariffs were just jacked up until common sense found its way back into the world leaders' brains. And then everybody wins, and everybody's happy. And of course, the reciprocal tariffs are self-explanatory in their title. But the point being is, we pay for their existence. I played a clip last week of the Sean Ryan show breaking this all down. Matter of fact, while we're here, I guess we could just go ahead and play that again. Here we go.
Who do you think we're occupied by?
AIPAC. We send $18 billion a year to Israel. Why? And what do we get out of it?
Nothing.
We get nothing. Are we doing humanitarian work? No, they're charged with genocide. They're killing off Palestinians. Are we helping them survive? Well, they've got a higher standard of living than we do, a longer lifespan than we do, free education, free housing, free health care. Well, we're sending them money. Why? Ask yourself why a U.S. congressman can wear an Israeli military uniform in congressional chambers. I would think that would be an act of treason. Ask why the Israeli prime minister can bypass the president, fly directly in and speak to our Congress without any other government interaction. Our Congress gave Netanyahu, a foreign prime minister, 26 standing ovations. I have difficulty looking at that any other way than we're occupied. Statistically speaking, we have shown that whoever spends the more money on an election wins 94% of the time. Whoever spent the most wins. We can also show that every time somebody spoke out against Israel or AIPAC, the next election, their challenger was highly funded and wins. The facts are all there. All you have to do is look at them. Whenever we try to talk about it, you get told, well, that's anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Calling things the way they are is not anti-Semitic.
Yeah, tell me about it. See, ladies and gentlemen, while we are over here struggling to make ends meet, there's a small country the size of Maryland in the Middle East that produces nothing, has no rare earth minerals, has no oil or anything of the such, population of 9 million, and all of them have free education and free health care. We subsidize our lives financially to the tune of around $4 billion a year before October 7th anyway, and yet we have more homeless suicidal vets and zombie-like drug-addicted children that are losing limbs in cities all across America because while the rest of you were simply sleepwalking into the twilight zone, which is where we undoubtedly are today, the drug pimps of the world have traded heroin out for fentanyl and then fentanyl out for xylazine, which is a literal tranquilizer, and it causes necrosis of the injection site. And I want to say that there's another one now that starts with an M. But of course, they're calling it dope, and these kids are none the wiser. So until it's too late, they're none the wiser anyway. Anyway, being that Israel's GDP is half the size of New Hampshire, and they can't afford to even live without our help, why not just tell them that if they strike, then they're cut off financially? I mean, it's worked beautifully for every other country that stepped out of line, and Trump's even seemed to always brag about it and how it was always his plan. I'll tell you why. Because the last United States president to tell Israel no was JFK. And we all know how that ended. See, JFK wasn't too keen of this Israel nuclear program. He actually demanded inspections. Well, after that day in 1963, which is actually, it was November 22nd, 1963, Lyndon B. Johnson became the president. And almost immediately, he greenlit the Israel nuclear program. There are more things that need to happen for Israel to dominate their region. And of the most important, they have to get their foot on their necks of all the GCC countries. All of those Gulf kings and princes are wealthy beyond belief and control a huge portion of the world's energy supply. They got it. It's always been easy to keep them fighting among each other by keeping them from coming together over religion. Whisper some propaganda over here, then a little bit over there. And the next thing you know, you have countries at war over nothing either of them organically did. So, as we have it right now, as many of you probably even heard, and if you did, you dismissed it as propaganda, but it's unfortunately status quo for Israel. And you know, Tucker Carlson brought this up, and a lot of people are trying to, say that, man, the Saudis didn't say this and that. But would they? Would they admit to catching Mossad sabotaging their shit when Israel is as close as they are to the United States? Anyway, Saudi Arabia, a few days ago, there were Mossad agents arrested for trying to set off a false flag attack on Saudi oil. And naturally, they blamed it on Iran, which Iran is indeed already attacking both Israel and Saudi Arabia. So why would Israel even take the time to do something like that? Well, because first of all, it damages infrastructure. That's important. It's important because they're a soon-be rival in the region, if not sooner than later. And secondly, they want as many people to push back on Iran right now as they can get. Regardless of what you may be hearing, the United States did not plan for things to go this way. And while Israel probably knew they were dragging the United States into a long-term war, they knew the only way to end it is with boots on the ground. And by God, if Trump hasn't already handed them midterms over, if he keeps this up in 2028, it won't be hard for the morons on the left at all. Sad thing is, they're just as bad, not better. Look at what was allowed in Ukraine under Biden, not to mention all the weapons and money he sent to them and also to Israel to invade Gaza. So you see, they're just as war hawky, just really gay too. Gay war hawks. The GCC countries have become too fancy themselves as, I guess, the Swiss of the Middle East, because now that Swiss have sided with NATO, they're no longer neutral. A lot of countries have actually sought diplomacy in that region recently, and they are good at issuing it. So they are inherently building up influence worldwide. Israel isn't too fond of a powerful rival in the area, as you can see. Bahrain is in total chaos currently. Kuwait is still smoldering, and many more bases have been struck that belong to the United States. They're not telling you how hard we actually got hit back, but we did. Iran-Saudi pipeline has been blown up, and Qatar has lost their LNG line, which supplied Britain with 40% of its natural energy because Ukraine blew up Nord Stream and tried to blame it on Russia. Remember that? Oh, kind of see a pattern here. 20% of the world's energy supply comes from Qatar's LNG line. And also, now that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, except to a very, very tight schedule, which, this is a place where 55 million gallons of oil go through daily, and that's equivalent to roughly 26% of the world's supply. Gas prices haven't even begun to make you cringe yet. It's currently up to like $85 a barrel, $84 a barrel. Anyway, at this rate, it's going to reach $200 a barrel in the next year, maybe sooner, 6 months. See, poor Europe, they can't catch a break in this thing. They're already being hit with a massive Muslim influx due to refugees from this war already, a week into it. And it's only getting started. And as we all know too well by now, with their culture, they import their conflict. Former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, has now suggested that the next target be Turkey, as they are somehow now the next Iran. And it's within premise to believe that if they partner with Qatar, they could form a Sunni alliance and be an issue for Israel. Or, you could just leave them alone because you're both part of NATO, and Qatar before this shit was cool with the United States and was working to help build an alliance and a business venture. But the U.S. also promised protection, and now they've seemed to just remove all their defense systems away from the Gulf, all their Gulf partners, and into Israel, including the most recent THAAD battery, which was, it was there to protect the oil companies in the Gulf, where thousands of Americans are over there working right now and defenseless and stuck. Britain and Poland, they've been getting their citizens out. Russia's been getting their citizens out. All the Middle East for the last few days. And the U.S. just seems to be preoccupied, Before I move on, let me just show you the clip I was just telling you about with Turkey.
A new Turkish threat is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in Syria, are seeking influence elsewhere and everywhere throughout the region. And from here, I warn, Turkey is the new Iran.
It's insane.
Erdogan is sophisticated, dangerous, and he seeks to encircle Israel. And while some senior Israelis were on Qatar's payroll, Qatar and Turkey are nourishing.
Yeah, we don't have to go into all that. Anyway, I just wanted to show you. I was telling you the truth, which is what I try to do always. Anyway, the crazy part about this, though, is Israel could really get hurt in all this chaos. It's literally the size of Maryland. Isn't much to wipe out. But the thing is, this could go bad in so many ways because it's crystal clear where Trump stands in this. He would put boots on the ground before he would ever allow Israel to go down. And then Israel could feel like its existence is threatened and simply launch a nuke off. Into the atomic race as we go. The influence this country has over American foreign policy is insane. They're the same ones that provided information to Trump that Iran tried to kill him twice, hence the statement Trump made. The same country that told us about the weapons of mass destruction, the bioweapons in Iraq, and that eventually led to our invasion. Convenient that Saddam at that same time was paying suicide bombers in Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, we aren't allowed to see any of these documents because they are for some reason classified. Probably the same reason that thousands of JFK files are still classified and millions of 9/11 documents. America is losing on all personal fronts because of this. Our economy is about to take a hit due to the oil prices. We all know how groceries go up when gas does due to shipping and logistics. Our influence around the world is starting to dissipate. The respect we finally thought we had back is fading with each day that passes, and this continues. Why would anyone fear us anymore when we aren't doing too well with the current events unfolding in front of us? The global economy will suffer due to the United States suffering, and this will disturb all major markets around the world. Most definitely oil, which I suppose is a wonderful thing for the oil companies. But when do we know that we have achieved victory here? What is the end goal? It's hard to keep up when the goalposts keep being rearranged, man. The advisors around Trump are morons, and they really had this man convinced he would sweep in like in Venezuela and get out. These Persians or Iranians aren't goat-herding retards, okay? They're high IQ people with advanced weaponry and technology. They have thousands of ballistic missiles stockpiled and drones. They haven't even gotten to them yet, along with hypersonic missiles and drone-style kamikaze boats. Trump, you promised us a better life. And I don't see how this can end in any way where that is the end result. And this all boils down to some Zionist elites that want to protect their order and agenda. And honestly, if we would all just stop bitching and fighting over everything for just a second, we could see that they are the real supremacists. They're tribal. They take care of their own, and they think they're divine. They're meant to rule. And of course, neocons like Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, he's even suggesting that we go into Cuba next and into Lebanon right now because Israel, that's right, Israel went into Lebanon also. See the bloodlust that it's overtaken this boomer generation? Hold on. I got Lindsey Graham on Fox News. I forgot I pulled that up for you.
Is President Trump finished the job that President Reagan failed to do. I am a big admirer of Ronald Reagan, but I'm here to tell you that Donald Trump, in my opinion, is the gold standard for Republicans, maybe any president, and when it comes to foreign policy. Maduro, everybody talked about him. Well, Donald Trump's got him in jail. Cuba's next. They're going to fall. This communist dictatorship in Cuba, their days are numbered. The Iranian regime, the mothership of international terrorism, is about to collapse. The captain of the ship, the Ayatollah, is stone cold dead.
Okay. See, this boomer generation, the same generation that pushed the previous Middle East wars, is getting to the point where one bad move can end society as we know it. We all need to pray for this country, that we're going to come out of this with our dignity, or what's left of it. The practices that these people have mastered are as old as time, repeating a lie over and over and over until it becomes simply conventional wisdom. Very similar to chanting in a ritual, isn't it? You see, it's easy to divide us. All of our enemies knew long ago that you can't beat us militarily. So they started funding the culture rot that has overtaken pretty much all of the Western society. Populations get brainwashed and indoctrinated. A perfect example is the white liberal woman. And I know I rag on them a bunch, but man, name me one other race that has women that hate themselves and their men. You can't. They've been toppled into a cycle of self-hate and virtue signaling, and that's what they now live for, to force their help on what they see as the next victim class. And that doesn't mean that there isn't insanity on the other side either. There are still those out there that believe that every word Trump says is true. And they think that every move is 5D chess. And it's so sad to see such Orwellian groupthink on both sides. But I suppose there's still hope. That's as long as people like me and you, we refuse to allow anyone to trespass on us, physically and spiritually, because this is a spiritual battle. This is a spiritual war. And if you cannot see that, there are things happening right now that you would be mind blown if you could see into that realm. The battles that we face on a daily basis, people, if you could just peek into the realm that this is happening in, man, it's impossible. You know what? I'm not even going to get on that atheist tip because I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. America, it's time to wake up. Don't allow these people to think that you're bringing back the second coming of the Messiah. Jesus said, no man shall know the day nor the hour, and his word has been proven to me more than anyone else's. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Pray for this country. God bless you all, and God bless America.